Right. Awesome. No, it's okay.
Okay. So we're John Rasmussen.
Guys, we're just waiting for one more board member, so we're going to start in just a minute, all right?
Okay.
Thank you for all for being here.
Yeah.
It's actually not as hot as I thought it was going to be.
Who's on your board, Eddie? I'd like to have you pass those out to the sitting members that are here.
Absolutely. Crystal, do it. Appreciate it.
Cover sheet for notes.
Hey, I like it.
You're prepared. Make sure everybody
Giving us
else
the
is.
expensive
Is there-
letterhead, I appreciate that.
Who is here from the council? Or from the committee?
But I would like those back.
Very nice.
Okay.
You want to do that too?
Same, I had some,
Right now, we just, it's just.
Oh, perfect.
just one pager.
Okay. And how many people make up the voting committee?
There are-
Five. Five. Which, yes, counting Mayor Sunquist, I should say. Yeah, so we need five to vote.
But
Which
there are
means-
more votes. Five is the minimum number.
Oh, yeah, for quorum.
But I think there's.
I think that's what she meant was required, right?
Total number.
Oh, I was just curious based on witnessing our presentations.
Yes, so we'll, as soon as Tony gets here, so I don't have to say it twice, but because we don't have quorum, we record it and stream it anyway, but we're going to have it vote via unanimous consent. But there's a council component first, so council is going to meet on Monday in their work session and discuss how they want to approach it on Monday. And then JLC will vote immediately following that council meeting.
Vote on the funding.
And then it still will have to get approved by council, anything over 100,000 has to get approved by council.
And council sees these presentations?
Yes.
Yes.
They've also received everyone's application.
Yeah, and then they will vote on the 28th. So then JLDC will be able to, well, they'll vote, make their recommendations, and then council will vote on those recommendations. Okay? Yeah. No. Oh, here we go. These are for you? Yes.
Ready to go? Okay, we will go ahead and call this meeting of the Jamestown Local Development Corporation to order Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. It's currently 5:34 p.m. We have several presentations today from various folks. Thank you all for being here today. We appreciate it. As I said before we started the live stream, we'll make sure we get everyone's good side on camera. But we'll ask when you come up to present, you come up to the table and make the presentation. Just for a process purpose, we've asked you to come back to present just so that you can explain a little bit more information. I know Tim will probably talk about that briefly, but we are working through with the JLDC board to figure out what final numbers should be on various grant applications. For all of our members that are here for the Rescue Plan Not-for-Profit Business Grant, in particular, anything over, grants over $100,000 actually has to be approved by City Council. So City Council will be kind of watching the presentations that we had last meeting as well as this meeting, and we are working to kind of finalize what final numbers may be. So in that process, we've asked you all a couple additional follow-up questions on various items, and so we'd love to just hear a little bit more. You did present once, so you don't need to go through everything all over again, but I do know that I'm pretty sure Tim had sent up some follow-up questions to each of your organizations, so we're just looking for some additional information from you all. And once we get through the three presentations for the not-for-profit business program, we'll then talk to the three Fund for Downtown programming events, which you see here. Thank you all for coming to learn a little bit more about the events you all are proposing for additional funding. Okay. Any questions? We're not approving everything tonight. As you can tell, we only have a couple of us here, so we don't have enough votes to move forward. But we are trying to get everything done, hopefully before the end of the month, so we can get those things squared away. Okay. Excellent. So we will start off first. I don't know, Tim, is there anything you want to say about what we're asking folks to present on tonight?
Sure. So good evening, everybody. Tonight, as the mayor said, we have our last 3 nonprofit presentations. These were for award requests that were greater than or $200,000. And the theme that we'll be continuing from last session is the return on investment. And so first, I'd like to welcome Christian McMahon and Tina Downey of Robert H. Jackson Center.
So come on up.
It's not quite Price
Next
is Right.
contestant.
Not quite Price is Right, but close.
Big money, big money.
No whammies.
So we're
So thank you for this opportunity to share with you again what we are looking to do and the opportunity to talk about the return on investment. So for us, although it seems as if we're asking for 2 unrelated things, the theater money to support the theater renovation as well as position support, we actually see these as 2 sides of the same coin. And so as we're looking to elevate everything that we do, these are part and parcel of the same thing, more expertise, a more modern venue, and all of that to help elevate and move us forward. So for more than a year, I think as I highlighted at our last meeting, our board and staff have been working through capacity building goals and plans, and both the development side and the implementation side of that. And this request is really part of that process. This is an outgrowth of that process, and it's the first step for us to modernize what we offer, which includes our programs and our space. It also provides more and some other steps that we are looking for in the future. We will be providing more meaningful and more interactive exhibits, and we will be looking to better engage current and future generations. So we want to make Jamestown a destination for students of justice and the rule of law, since it is a destination for a number of things already, such as comedy and nature, and we're talking students of any age. And as part of this, just to highlight, a number of teachers already look to us as a resource for their classes. So for example, Betsy Robert regularly uses our theater for her class instruction. It gets the students into a different headspace. It brings them an opportunity to have discussions that more I guess rigid or more classroom-based experiences won't provide to them. We have been asked to develop experiences such as our Battle of the Books, to continue to foster a love of literacy and reading in middle school students and help promote their academic excellence. And our venue also provides the opportunity for practice in trial for the mock trial practices as well as the competition. And we host that every year, which we're very happy to do. The positions, Director of Programs and Education and the Marketing and Communications, provide greater exposure to the work that we do. It brings us attention to the center, both physically and virtually, and it encourages people to come to Jamestown to experience it. And this, again, will also enable us to maximize the use of our building. We are certainly very cognizant of the fact that philanthropy and philanthropists is contingent on supporters feeling as if they're making a valuable investment. And we believe strongly that we are excellent stewards and a sound investment. And so over the past couple of years, as you will see in our impact report, which we will give to you and provide copies for the board members who could not be here, we have provided education opportunities to thousands of students every year. And we develop resources for teachers. And the positions will help us build on those as well as offer more programs to reach more students and teachers. We also host teacher in-service days and other teachers training in our theater and banquet room actually. And we've started working with local and regional artists to utilize our unique sized theater for them to develop their practices, their craft, also expand their audiences. And we like the idea of helping Jamestown promote itself as the home of a creative population, of people who bring some of that intangible love of life to this, where it's not just all work, but it's that creative side. We bring in a substantial number of guests every year for programs that Jamestown otherwise would not have access to, and that includes such people as Supreme Court justices, international figures, as well as world-renowned authors and journalists. And we feel that is one of the greatest ways that we contribute to this community, is to provide opportunities and experiences that they might not otherwise get. And we are fostering conversations in this community that are deeply necessary. We are a safe space for debate, to develop understandings, to enable open and public discourse on the topics that both bring us together as well as divide us. And also, for us, we can leverage the city's investment in our building and in our people with additional funding from other grants and donors. So earlier this year, we applied for a New York State grant to help with the renovation of the theater. It was a very competitive process, and we were not awarded funding in that particular go-round. In a subsequent conversation that Tina had with the grant administrator, they said that our application was exceptionally strong. And one thing that would make it stronger would be an understanding of additional funds that would already be in hand, or a more solid understanding of here is where additional monies will come from. So we could very easily use this grant as a matching opportunity for that opportunity as well, which will enable us to expand the work that we're able to do there and bring additional state investment into this area. And similarly, we've been generating a lot of interest in our staff expansion and the capacity building plans in general. So we have received funding from local and regional foundations already, and we know, because they've told us, that they would love to see commensurate investment from the city as well, and to really showcase that collective interest in our growth and our continued success. And finally, we are one of the few organizations in town that you do not need to pay to access. We never charge an admission fee. All of our programs are free and open to the public. And this is a really key component for us. This education piece is critical to my board, even though they have tasked me with figuring out ways to differentiate our income. This is one path I know I cannot take, and that they are committed to all of this being free and accessible. The modernization of the theater and these additional positions will help reduce our costs from the theater side, help reduce our costs, and enable us to devote even more of our resources to the programs and education, and these positions then will help elevate the programs and education. Any questions?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think we're
Okay.
good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you for providing the impact report as well.
Of course.
Yes, please, thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite Mr. John Kinder to speak on behalf of the Northwest Arena and the Kid Zone.
All right. I apologize for my back, folks. But you do get to look at our sweet logo. So thank you guys, JLDC committee and city council as well, tuning in for the opportunity to present to you guys yet again. We feel very strongly and passionately about this project, so I hope that rings through as I present to you guys today. I will be reading quite a bit just to avoid missing any touch points. So I would like to lead with today. It was funny, on the way in, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw a post from a buddy of mine, and it was captioned, "You invest in what you value." And it was an article about Texas school district building a $35 million football stadium. So again, you invest in what you value. So I guess I'll lead with that today. So we were tasked with addressing today the return on investment that the zone will provide for JLDC and the city of Jamestown. So we look at it as a three-tiered return on investment. The first being children and families. We think that our program will have the most profound effect and impact on our community members. The second thing we'll address is subsidized admission gifts, quote-unquote scholarships, and I hate to use that word, but there will be plenty of opportunity for our guests to have reduced and even free admission via some really really awesome things that I'll address in here in a bit. And then the third would be the economic impact, which we haven't delved into too much, but am eager today to present that to you guys because it will make some pretty paramount economic impact. So without further ado, that children and families component, the zone reimagines the way we approach youth recreation and educational programming in Jamestown, New York. Our greatest asset is our youth, and each of us is responsible for investing in them because they are our future. The most immediate impact this play space will make is on our community members, specifically children and families. Jamestown lands at number 6 for highest population living in poverty out of 62 counties in New York State. We have begun cultivating and nurturing relationships with our friends and colleagues from other local youth development agencies, including the local schools. These relationships will enable us to capture a wide range of community members and services as to not duplicate offerings, but rather support one another in ways that enhance youth and family engagement in Jamestown. Plainly put, there is no place like the zone in our region and arguably the entire country. And I don't know how many of you have walked around the National Comedy Center, but it is absolutely beautiful, and we are super excited that the development agency, Jack Rouse Associates, and Cortina Productions will also be working on the zone as well. So if you can get a sense of how progressive and interactive the Comedy Center is, the zone will share that same sentiment. Next, some recent achievements will help community members meet our price point, which is still under construction, but we feel very comfortable that it will end up being $10 general admission. So again, some recent achievements will help them to meet that. The first is we are officially BOCES aidable. There's a program called COSER, which stands for Cooperative Service Program. This centralized service saves money for participating school districts and aids smaller districts to partake in shared programs that they otherwise might not be able to afford. There are 5,100 total students over the course of 13 grade levels, approximately 390 per grade in the Jamestown School District. The programming we are crafting and is pretty much plug and play, ready to go as soon as we open our doors, is designed to build confidence, inspire kids to explore their wildest dreams, and begin honing skills which will apply to careers that they may want to pursue. We have also received public and private funds by way of donation and fundraising that will absorb the cost of admission for local low-income youth. We've had unbelievable community support, and here are a few funding commitments that we have garnered in the last year. $5,000 per year from an out-of-area foundation who saw the value and shared our sense of urgency to bring this project to Jamestown. Another fund has been created from a local foundation that lends perpetual support, and a local business raised over $3,000 during a fundraiser that they have pledged to host annually. We are just blown away by the outpouring of support and believe that we are positioned to continue generating creative ways to offset the cost of admission for our local children. And lastly, the economic impact. According to the Arts and Economic Prosperity 5 report, museums, and we are categorized as a children's museum, have a return of more than $5 in tax revenue for every dollar they receive in funding from all levels of government. This translates to over 726,000 American jobs and an annual generation of $50 billion in U.S. economy, based on American Alliance of Museums. The average attendee, and this is continuing with their research, spends $31.47, that's per person, when attending an event or museum. This does not include the cost of admission. So if you could think about that and put it in perspective in terms of bars, local restaurants, hotels, grocery stores, shops, and boutiques, that is all being funneled back into our community. AECOM, a reputable consulting firm, performed a study that estimates Northwest Arena will see 45,000 visitors to the zone annually once in full operation. This is in addition to the 250,000 turnstile visits the arena sees each year. Taking into consideration AECOM's estimation and the American Alliance of Museums national report, The zone will infuse not only excitement, but plenty of dollars into the city of Jamestown. Oxford Economics Impact Analysis reports children's museums see 850 million visitors annually. They measured the indirect impact, which is museum spending. For example, after a competitive bidding process, we opted to hire a local construction company for our initial 15,000 square foot addition. They also studied the indirect impact, which would be dollars spent in wider consumer economy. Their findings conclude that children's museums mobilize communities by increasing gross domestic profit, job creation, and tax revenue, and overall quality of life. Lastly, I'd like to finish with a quote from the article Children's Museums and Why They Are Essential to Our Children and Families. This was written and edited by members of the Greater Minnesota Children's Museum Coalition. It was a 2023 article, so pretty recent. Just a quick tidbit and fun fact, Minnesota is rapidly on the rise as one of the states that have really gotten behind the push for spaces such as the Zone and these children's museums. They have 12 currently, and New York State has 16, hopefully 17 coming soon. And this quote from that article says, "For some of us, the giddy excitement of a school field trip to the museum or theme park is a treasured memory. We remember what it was like to walk underneath towering dinosaur skeletons, to discover what electrical currents look like, to build teetering contraptions with our hands, and to climb through mazes of tunnels and ladders. We were able to carry forward the feelings of wondrous magic, inner child awe, because of the opportunities we were provided as children. Without a doubt, learning through multi-sensory, play-filled experiences is long-lasting, impactful, and should be afforded for every child. This is where children's museums come in." So if there are no questions, that concludes my presentation today.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Will there be a dinosaur bones at the museum?
There will be
This may impact my vote.
plenty for children of all walks and cultures. The likes of a rock climbing wall and Jumbotron and
Excellent,
lots of fun things. Yeah.
excellent.
I don't get a vote, but can adults
Absolutely.
play?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's part of I should mention, not to take away anyone else's time, but it is a multi-purpose facility. We'll do a lot of professional development opportunities in there, corporate meeting space, really fun things. On top of it just being a general recreational facility, we'll do a lot of that programming and stuff, so we're excited about it.
Excellent.
Thank you guys.
Thank you much.
Lastly, I'd like to invite Journey Gunderson and Rochelle Moore of the Comedy Center to share the presentation.
Thank you.
Well, you pick any seat. All right.
Hello.
Sorry, guys.
Thank you for having us again. Thank you, those of you who couldn't make
Thank
it.
you for your flexibility.
Oh, thank you for your care for the city and for putting in your own time to carefully make these decisions, because we know it's not an easy job. So Rochelle, if you don't know, is our Chief Financial and Operations Officer, and we've been working together on the National Comedy Center since before it opened. So we're both here to answer any questions you have, but I really wanted to focus on the request for tonight, which is further explain the ROI, the return on investment, and try not to be duplicative of what we've presented last time. So a reminder that what we are applying for is support that will put money directly in the coffers of the local businesses. I see the National Comedy Center in the context of this application as the machine that, if we run it at a higher capacity, only increases the amount of money that ends up in the hands of local businesses in the form of wages and revenues. A couple of quotes from local business owners. This is from Sammy Lissandro of the Pub. He says, "Our business has been doing great because of the National Comedy Center. We're currently having one of our best summers yet. Our large lunch and early dinner crowds are because of the center and what they've done for downtown tourism. People are coming into our restaurant from all over the country. They and we absolutely love it." So that's Sammy Lissandro of the Pub. Another is from Crown Street Roasting Company on 3rd Street from Michaela and Nick Serto. Crown Street Roasting has visitors from often has visitors from the National Comedy Center and the Lucy Desi Museum. And for clarity, we are one organization, so any marketing support goes into promoting both of those attractions, spreading the business throughout the downtown. This year during the festival, we had a line to the door for the entire weekend. It was great for business and exciting to see all the activity in downtown Jamestown. The impact on local businesses by investing in the National Comedy Center, just on a day-to-day, if you don't even want to think about the events and those high saturation periods, the fact that we're open year-round during the times of year when the business is really needed the most to get through the long winters, day-to-day, the only food service we provide on site is a little bit of sustenance so that people will go and eat in the restaurants, but even that, we're buying from a local vendor, Farm Fresh Foods, locally owned. I know that our visitors often frequent, whether it's the comedians or the festival attendees or our day-to-day museum visitors, they're going into Cherry Street Lounge, the Wine Cellar, the Beer Snob, the print shops we order from in terms of what we spend annually. It's astronomical and in many cases is a huge portion of their annual budget. Not to mention restaurants that include the Labyrinth and the Landmark, the catering companies that we work with on all of our events. Every time we bring a bus group, we're often working with a local caterer to feed them or putting them directly into a local restaurant. So I encourage you to think about this as support for what happens actually external to our turnstile. That's what this is about. In terms of the hotels, it's not just during the festival that we're filling the DoubleTree, the La Quinta, the Comfort Inn, the Holiday Inn. And that's, I mean, if you think about the number of people who are employed by just those 4 hotels in Jamestown proper, not counting Harbor Hotel and Airbnbs and campgrounds, for example, the impact is enormous. How do we know that? So from visitor data, we know that 88% of the visitors to the Comedy Center are from outside of Chautauqua County. We know that 40% of our visitors spend the night, so they have to eat somewhere. We know that 85% of our visitors report being very likely to return. So look at this not as even the instant impact from the visit, but the residual that they're going to go back to Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Toronto, Buffalo, and tell 100 people about their experience. So the impact is for decades to come. 59% of non-resident visitors spent more than 2 nights in the area. So consider the impact of that. 77.6% ate at a restaurant in town, an average of 2.6 meals, and visiting groups spent an average of $346 while in town. So that's the trend once we get them here. How does this support get them here? What we're proposing is to use this support not just to recover from the hit that we took during COVID, and believe me, that was significant, and that's all in the application. But it's to promote to these drive markets that were included in the feasibility analysis that was done on why the Comedy Center should be built in the first place. We're just trying to execute the plan and the logic that got this place built and that caused so many people to jump on board. So in terms of the impressions we would get, these are just 2 anecdotal examples that I think help quantify the return on investment or help connect these dots. We did a summer campaign in Pittsburgh on KDKA, which is the CBS affiliate. And that delivered, in terms of impressions, 966,000 households. So that's 1.2 million adults, 18 plus, who are 2.5 hours away from us just in Pittsburgh. We also did campaigns in Cleveland. And the way we would put these resources to use is a mix of earned media, working with a publicist who gets articles in the newspaper, gets me on local news programs. I did 2 trips to Pittsburgh this summer and 1 to Cleveland to go on their morning shows, go on their radio shows, and just talk up Jamestown and all there is to do here. So there's a mix of the resources being put toward that kind of earned media, we describe as the news, and paid advertising. It's expensive to advertise in these places, but what happens to Jamestown is that any $1 that comes from this committee turns into an exponential of that comes directly into this community. Our co-branded campaign we did, for example, with the Harbor Hotel this summer generated 1.8 billion impressions over the course of 6 weeks. We ran this campaign in Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Ontario, Rochester, Buffalo, and Central New York. So I don't think that's a coincidence that Sammy at the pub is saying he's having his best summer yet. I think those things are directly correlated. In terms of why we should continue to support this thing, I don't think anybody thinks the work is done. I don't think anybody thinks that we've nearly tapped the potential of this. These are a taste of what can happen should we do more of that work. To be candid, prior to 2022, I don't think we had spent any dollars in Cleveland, and we had only done a few press hits in Pittsburgh. And so many people would say, why aren't you promoting more in these drive markets that are within 3 hours? The answer is resources. The answer is dollars. It's that simple. So we know it works. It's a machine that has been built, and this money is just putting gas in the tank to run it for the benefit of everyone who lives, works, and plays in Jamestown, New York. The impacts are unquestionable. We know that it works. I don't reiterate these proof points to be boastful, and it's not boastful because everybody had a hand in this. This is a community project that the Comedy Center exists at all. I just get to be the spokesperson for a really strong team, and that team goes beyond our organization. But think about any economically depressed city in this country and how much they would love the opportunity to play this card and to run this piece of equipment. It's a museum that was named the best new museum in the country. It's been named to Time Magazine's World's Greatest Places list. You can read any visitor review, and I encourage you to, so you don't have to take my word for it. TripAdvisor, Google My Business, Facebook reviews. We're 5 out of 5 stars on most of the sites. I think the lowest we get is 4.8 or 4.9. And the reviews, the articulation of the experience people are having is that they never expected to find something this great and that it warrants a repeat visit. So many of them say, we thought we'd spend 2 hours, we ended up spending 4, and then we decided to get a membership and come back several times or get it as a gift for their friends and family in Pittsburgh or Cleveland to come back. So I think, again, any city like Jamestown, like ours, would love to be handed this thing to now run. Let's work the machine, and let's run it in a way that doesn't wait to deliver impact. We all know we cannot afford to lose more restaurants in downtown Jamestown. We can't afford for any one of those hotels to close because it becomes momentum in the wrong direction. You might think, okay, if one hotel closes, then the others will do better and people will still come. But one hotel closing means the difference in being able to host a conference. So now you've lost the conference. Now all of those restaurants and all of the places that stand to benefit, it becomes downward spiral and downward momentum in a way that you can't recover from. So there is an urgency about this. We can't sit around and wait and say, maybe 5 years from now, the Comedy Center will have a bigger marketing budget and write more grants and find the resources. We have to do this now if we want to keep the momentum going, because it's harder to recover if you go further into a hole. And coming out of COVID, we're all still trying to get back to 2019 levels. There are organizations that are nervous about hitting 2022 levels in 2023 as we're looking at how things have shaken out. So there is a serious urgency to this. The last 2 points I want to make, 3 actually. One is, these will be brief, a reminder that our National Comedy Center local wage impact, just in terms of our own payroll and the people who are running the attraction and keeping it open 6 days a week, that impact in 2022 alone was $1.5 million. So running this machine has an impact. We did an economic impact study in thinking about trying to quantify it per today's sort of request for more focus on the ROI. We did an economic impact study in 2011, well before the Comedy Center existed, on the 4 days of the Lucille Ball Comedy Festival in 2011. And the economic impact, after a third-party study was done and extensive research, the direct impact of those 4 days alone was $3.7 million on Chautauqua County. And the indirect and induced impacts, which means, you know, the ripple effect, was 4.6 million. So if that's across 4 days, and granted it was a festival that had 15,000 people, $1 from this grant program put into the hands of our chief of marketing, Gary Hahn, who's really sophisticated with this effort, means delivering another 966,000 households in Pittsburgh. So the power of what you can do with this money is extraordinary, and I think that impact is clear. When it comes to also the local impact, not just the local businesses are gaining these dollars into their accounts. What do we do when we see an uptick? When we have any two nickels to rub together at the Comedy Center, we're either promoting to get more people here or we're hiring more people. We are a lean team that is too small proportionate to what we're doing, and I'm sure you see that at times. So, for example, we hired somebody a year ago to focus more on school field trips, and then we welcomed 1,000 local school students through the Comedy Center last year. But we hadn't focused our energy on it before because we didn't have a body in the chair to do it. So that's the other thing you should be thinking about when you're thinking about increasing the impact of the National Comedy Center. It's a tide that really lifts all boats. So we'll put it to good use, and we promise you that. Does anyone have any questions?
We very much appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it.
We appreciate you. Thank you very much. And thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. We do have some additional presentations to get through as well for the Fund for Downtown programming. Unless there's anything else, Tim, you want to add on that?
I think that should be it.
So we've got a couple of funds for downtown programming. The first one is the Italian American Charity Golf Association.
Okay,
You want to come on up?
that'd be us.
Pick a chair, any
Where
chair,
would you like
multiple
us, Amos?
chairs, anywhere you want.
Thanks for having us, everyone. Okay. Why don't you ladies look at this while you're listening to see some of the stuff you've done. Like I said, thank you again for having us. I'm Joe Paterniti with the Italian American Charity Golf Association. With me is David Manella, who's our current committee chairman, and Peter Morgani, who is our chief financial officer for the committee. He's also a CPA and a CFO at Hope's Windows. Dave's a retired teacher, and I have worked at the pub downtown for 40 years, so I understand what economic impact of bringing local venues, acts, and that's what we're talking about doing here, and bringing additional people into the downtown region. I've been throughout the country, similar sized cities with venues similar to the Reg Lene that don't have that gem in their cap as we do. With that being said, we want to talk a little bit about our organization before we go any further. A lot of the folks locally think we're just a bunch of guys that run a golf tournament. We are not. We are a bunch of dedicated men who have been involved in this cause, which is cancer care in our local community, for 53 years. Okay, we've given in excess of $1.7 million to cancer, and as of probably the last 20 years, we decided to dedicate our funding locally as opposed to going with the American Cancer Society. Since we decided to make that path stay local, our brand and our organization have been received with open arms to the point where the monies that we used to raise typically have doubled, and this year actually have almost tripled. So our name speaks for itself, and the dedication of the gentlemen on our committee certainly goes along with that. I can't speak enough about them. Dave and I have been on that committee for 30 plus years each, and Pete has really been an asset to our team and really working the numbers and getting us some of the statuses that we really need. I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff we've done locally downtown. Yearly, we have an annual winter dinner dance, which is a primary fundraiser to kick off our event. We have about 300 people that come to that. and we hold it at the Crystal Ballroom. Unfortunately, the status of that ballroom isn't in any condition where we feel that we could utilize that to our best capabilities. So our group starts looking at different ways we can raise money for local cancer care. And as Reggie Jackson said, he was the straw that stirs the drink. I come up with some ideas here and there, and for the most part, they seem to work. And we're happy about that because our community is what benefits from that. Looking at that, we have had a pasta cook-off locally, which has raised money and brought people downtown. We also have the annual winter dinner dance. The new project is a concert brought into the Reg Lene. And in your packets, the band is called the Femmes of Rock, for those of you who don't have a packet. I recently saw them at the Riviera Theater. They are a national group who currently is touring. They're based out of Vegas. They recently performed at the Pro-Am in Tahoe where Josh Allen played. They're playing all over the place. They're fantastic. And their credentials speak for themselves. They've speaking, for those of you who don't have it, the gals have participated with Stevie Wonder, Michael McDonald, Shakira, Beyonce, and David Foster, and many others. So it's not just a bunch of female violinists, cellists that are coming to town that we'd like to get the support for. With that said, the downtown revitalization, back to myself working downtown for 4 years. I'm going to give a case in point. I worked last night. I work one night a week at the pub now. That's all my body could physically take, and it pushed me last night. We had the World Series in town, and you had the event with what's her name, Melody Thomas, which we weren't expecting, and we had a full house. So we understand the importance of that and everything else that goes on in town. And what we're planning on doing with this group is we're planning on bringing them in. They're going to be here for 2 nights. We're going to get involved with the Infinity Performing Arts group, as well as a lot of the local businesses, try to get them to extend hours. Working with local hotels to get reduced rates, not only for the band, because they're going to have to be here for a couple nights, but because of the fact that they are from out of town, we expect a lot of people coming from out of town. When I saw them at the Riviera Theater, I saw that small little North Tonawanda village just exploding with people everywhere. Restaurants were full. And that place is smaller than ours. We think we can fill ours. Why do I think we could fill ours? I think we could fill it because we're going to go after this aggressively. About 17 years ago, we as an organization brought in an act. The gentleman's name was Tom Tirado. And Tom Tirado was a Frank Sinatra tribute artist. We had no help. We were just a bunch of guys, like I said, trying to raise additional funds for cancer care locally. We did the whole thing ourselves. We booked them. We got John Cross to bring in an orchestra. We sold our own tickets, and we sold out the venue 17 years ago and made about $17,000 for our cancer care projects. So we know we can do it. We have a great group of guys, a great team, and we're going to push it. Some of my footnotes here, we're going to utilize the downtown hotels, partnering with local businesses, including the pub, of course, and hopefully the Chop House and some others. Additionally, bringing in some revenue to the Reg, I think, is important. I don't think enough of us look at that. When going to them with the band's rider, we found out that the Reg doesn't have a lot of the equipment they need to put on this type of performance. Therefore, it's added in additional cost to our organization to get the band here. By giving the Reg additional money and allowing them to bring in acts such as this, we feel that it's going to make Jamestown and the Reg Lene a better destination for some more famous acts, or better acts, should I say, than maybe what we've had. And there have been some good ones, and there have been some not so good ones, but that's the chance you take. We know we have a good one. Let's see what else I got here. The timing of the event. Typically, right now we have a target date. The Reg is on hold for October, which is really a slow time of year for a lot of things going on downtown. we're hoping that by getting them here at that point, we're gonna explode the downtown and generate a lot of local business, okay? Why us? And my answer is why not? We are probably the longest standing charity golf tournament organization that I think I could speak of. I can't name any other that compares to what we've done. And as a side note, all of our money that we raise, 100% of what we raise goes towards the Cancer Crusade. None of what we raise goes to our operational expenses. We have other means of generating that revenue. So folks' donations, businesses' donations, individuals, players, that's 100%. And it goes to UPMC Cancer Care, and we had been splitting it for the last 3 years with the Chautauqua Hospice House. Pretty much that shows our commitment not only locally but where we're going. We don't branch off of that until recently, and I'm going to let David speak of that. But before that, I'll just talk about the benefits of the event. We're bringing a worldwide act that will demonstrate Jamestown can be a future destination for similar type acts and bring in more revenue to not only the businesses, bars, restaurants, but the hotels. And I, for one, know that the first year the DoubleTree was open, I chaired my class reunion, and we made that our home hotel, and we booked an event there. So I for one, understand the importance of keeping things downtown, where if you look at a lot of class reunions locally from people that have been around here, they go to Bemis, they go, no, we stay here. This is our hometown. That's the way we look at it, and that's the way I look at it. Local downtown restaurants obviously are going to benefit. The demographics, our outreach, given the fact that one of the girls in the band is from Buffalo, and her parents actually own a place on Chautauqua Lake, I think will allow us to even bring in more people from out of the city area, because the Buffalo market where she's from will be reached, and their social media aspect will along with our branding, will go far for us. We're planning on using local media, spending money with local media, Post-Journal, and any advertising, hoping to get in hand with WRFA as well. With that, I want to pass it over to Dave, and if you got any questions for Pete regarding our financials, but I'll let David talk about that most recent venture that we entered into.
Thanks, Joe. So one of the things that we have done is we've continuously looked at opportunities to partner with various organizations in our community. It's very important to us, like Joe said, and there's been some misnomers out there. Our whole mission is to give back everything that we raise to the community. If you talk to anybody at UPMC, they'll tell you how important we've been to UPMC and helped them to secure numerous pieces of cancer fighting equipment. And then when we went to the hospice house when they were opening up a couple of years ago, and decided to partner with them and made a 5-year commitment of $100,000 to them, they were beyond thrilled. We've had numerous, accolades from them thanking our partnership. And I think if you talk to anybody that's part of that organization, they'll reiterate what I'm trying to point out. So one of the things that happened about a year or so ago, Pete was heavily involved in this. We got together with the Community Foundation. We had some extra funds available, and we tried to come up with an idea that we thought was pertinent to giving back to our community in addition to what we were already doing. And we've set up 2 funds. One is a scholarship fund for local students going into the medical field. Just looking at it, we've already accumulated close to $20,000 in there that's going to be given out in the form of a scholarship for many years to come. In addition, though, one of the ideas of the founding members of the Italian American Golf Association, I'm sure everybody will recognize the name, Carl Kappa, as well as his association with the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation, paved the way for these organizations to become partners down the road. He served as an instrumental role for both organizations during his earliest years. His knack for connecting people and organizations together generated more collective impact than any one group could have achieved on their own. So the closest the Italian American Golf Association can still point to his fingerprints and impact. His legacy with the foundation is embodied in the endowment funds that bear his name and his family's name. So we have set up an endowment fund too, that local organizations can be granted funds through various things that we will set up. And we've accumulated now close to about $55,000 in that fund too. So what I'm saying, at the end of the day, all the money that you hear us talking about, including the idea that we're trying to secure additional funds through this event that we hope to promote in Jamestown, does go back to our community. And I think that's important to remember. Nothing that we do, there is none of the monies that we raise, and I can't emphasize this enough, is coming back to us in the form of any type of profits or anything like that. And that, I think in itself, is important that everybody understands, so that there's no, misnomers out there that, we still hear them, and we have to squelch those rumors all the time. But I just want to reassure everybody, and based on the information I think we provided you tonight, I think it speaks for itself. Pete, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more, because he was fantastic in getting this going too. So.
I think as these two guys have been on the committee for 30 plus years, and they have a heart and soul of the organization, but I'll speak as a new guy on the committee, and just to reiterate, the money that we give to UPMC is for equipment that UPMC would not normally purchase and keep here in Chautauqua County. That's very important to understand. When we give them that check at the end of the day, we know what piece of equipment they're gonna purchase, and we know that it's gonna be in Jamestown, New York.
Does anybody have any questions for us? Again, appreciate everybody's time and the work you all do for our community, and our goal, along with raising funds for cancer, is to bring some people to downtown Jamestown and let them have a great time, because it was a great city, and I for one can attest to that. We just need to get it back to where it was. We're close. We're not quite there yet.
Okay. We
Thank you.
certainly appreciate it. We won't be voting tonight, but we will follow.
Understand.
Okay?
Absolutely.
We'll be
Thanks so much.
voting,
Thanks.
with a unanimous consent. Is that what it is?
Yes, yeah,
So it'll be in the next week.
I would like to within the next week, because I'm sure.
So what that means is we're gonna vote outside here.
Yeah.
And then when we come back the next time, we make it official, but.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you're on the website.
These are
Great.
promotional materials that we put out for people to
I took some photos to share with everyone
Absolutely,
else that
thank
needs
you.
to see them, so.
appreciate.
Well, we
it.
were short there, one, two.
Well, we need,
We need at least five.
yeah,
You don't vote, so,
so we need two more,
so two.
yeah.
Okay.
I can vote three times. I support it.
Thank you.
One, two.
I'll allow it, no. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you
it's
so
just a
much.
formality.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yep, I've got
You
it.
got those?
Well, I'm gonna
Give
keep
to the-
these
You're
for
good.
them,
the
yes.
folks. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Okay, next one up, Jamestown Public Market. Renee, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, everyone here tonight, everybody watching virtually and after. My name is Linnea Haskin. I'm the director of the Jamestown Public Market. We operate the Saturday Farmers Market, as well as the Jamestown Mobile Market and Jamestown Community Garden Program. We also work directly with the public schools. Very proud this year that we worked with Bush Elementary to establish their very first school garden. And for the first garden club night, they had 70 students, which is incredible. So that shows us that the community is very hungry, pun intended, for more programs that are related to food and learning about our food system. So before I dive deeper in the event that we're hoping to do, I want to ask everybody a question. Who here ate something today? Raise your hand.
Not much though. I'm
That's
hungry.
okay. Sometimes we don't get time. How many of you, raise your hand, if you thought about while you were eating it, where it came from? And I don't mean the restaurant or the packaging. Who grew it? Who raised it? How it got from the garden to your mouth?
Not today.
You did? Thanks, Steven. I love it. And that's not uncommon. I'll say when I first dove into the world of food systems, I was a novice. And despite my passion for wanting to feed people, especially those that don't get food on a regular basis, there was a lot for me to learn. So in February of 2020, I traveled to San Diego, California, and I was the first market manager from Jamestown, from Chautauqua County, to travel out of the state for a farmers market conference. And it was there that I met my people, and I was like, holy crap, there are other farmers market managers in the country, and they're dealing with a lot of the same issues that we are. And one of the speakers at that event was a gentleman named Mark Wynn. He wrote this book among several others, Closing the Food Gap. And I was just enthralled by his talk and even more so with his message after reading his book. And so it's been kind of my hope since then to bring Mark to our community. And here's why. Since the Jamestown Public Market employed a full-time manager since 2018, we have saw an increase in sales of over 2,000%. We have tripled the number of vendors. We've relocated Market to be more visible. We've partnered with almost every business downtown. We've even worked with local restaurants to help them learn how to procure local produce. Why is that important? Agriculture is a huge part of our economy, and I think it's something that is often forgotten when we are in the city, right? We don't see the farms, we don't pass by cows, we really don't think about where our food comes from and why it's important. And when you look at the USDA map, food access map of Jamestown, the entire city is covered with a big green blob. And that means that the majority of Jamestown does not have access to fresh foods, particularly fresh local foods. And they do when they're visiting our programming, when they're growing food in their community garden, when they're visiting the library or the Chautauqua Center or the Resource Center for our mobile market, when they're visiting the public market on Saturdays. And what Mark is an expert in for over 25 years is food systems, which is the system of the food, how food travels from when it's put into the ground or born, all the way to when it goes back into the ground, and every step in between, including how that food is transported, how that food is sold, how that food is prepared and eaten, and the individuals that it touches along the way. And it's so much more than just increasing food access. When I say food access, I don't necessarily mean just for people that traditionally lack food access. I'm talking about access to food in a different kind of way. We don't have a farm-to-table restaurant in Jamestown. When I travel other places, that is an experience that people desire and people want. But I'll say over the last 5 years, we've had an explosion of downtown restaurants that want to partner with us and want to learn how they can support local farmers and bring that unique experience to Jamestown that's really going to benefit us. So our event is going to be kind of 3 parts, actually 4. Mark Wynn is going to come in September 15th, host a luncheon where we will be inviting who we consider to be local change makers. So that'll be everyone in this room, but also nonprofit leaders, other local elected officials, and just anyone really in the community that we think should be a part of the conversation. And over local lunch, we're going to kind of have a casual discussion on the issues that we as a community see in terms of how to make our food system better. Everything from restaurant success to the growth of our public market. Later that evening, we're going to host a free public community event where Mark will be the keynote speaker. This will be held at our partner, St. Luke's Episcopal Church, and it'll feature Mark Wynn's impactful talk focused on strengthening community food systems, utilizing lessons from his newest book called Food Town USA. He traveled the country and highlighted 7 cities very similar to Jamestown to learn about what they're doing around food and how it's economically impacted their community. So he's really going to focus on lessons that we can learn from other communities. And then we will be hosting a reception afterwards where we will have kind of a brief discussion with some local community leaders. So we're hoping to get a restaurant leader. We will be inviting farmers market managers, people who can kind of take what Mark had to say and apply it to our community. And then the next day on September 16th, Mark will join St. Luke's Episcopal Church and the Greater Diocese of Erie County. This will be an invitation-only event, but it's going to be bringing in people from all over Chautauqua County, Cattaraugus, Allegheny, Erie County, as far as Pennsylvania. I think some people coming from upstate New York. And this will be focused on how faith-based organizations can take the lessons that we have learned in our partnership with St. Luke's and investing it into food systems. Why we think it's important to focus on faith-based communities is we have a huge faith-based community in Jamestown. We have so many churches, so many congregations, and so many that are already in the food space, whether that's through hosting, fundraisers with, chicken barbecue dinner or a spaghetti dinner, or running a food pantry, or St. Luke's that runs our programs. And so Mark's going to facilitate a panel discussion with some local food systems experts, including Jerry Fisher from the Seneca Nation, myself, and a couple individuals from the Buffalo area, so that we can learn about what's already happening in our community, but then looking to the future. For example, we're hoping to bring in somebody from Providence Farm Collective who work with refugee and migrant communities, which is a huge concern in our own community, but they've really turned it into a positive by utilizing food to transform these communities and bring them success. And we have seen that success through our own public market with one of our migrant families who started a business at the public market selling empanadas, which they've been wildly successful. And then in October, we are partnering with the Beer Snob to kind of do a follow-up event, because we don't want this to be a one and done thing. We don't want them to kind of forget about what we've been talking about. And so it's going to be modeled after a panel that we did called Grow Jamestown After Dark. And we are going to call it Grow Jamestown Food Town. And we're going to bring in hyper-local food leaders, including Annalise Bergel, who's manager of the Fredonia Farmers Market, Andrea DeMeo, who's a local wellness and fat advocate, and some community members who are not only volunteers for our programs, but also urban gardeners, so that we can have a community discussion and just talk about fun stuff about food and what they want to see in our community. How this is going to affect downtown. We're going to encourage as many restaurants downtown to brand themselves for the weekend, both weekends, as a food town restaurant, and encourage individuals who are attending these events to eat downtown. We will also be utilizing local restaurants for catering for the private events. And again, because we're hosting it at the Beer Snob, we hope to significantly impact their sales that evening. Our last event that we did there hosted over 100 individuals, and it was a really successful night. Mark Wynn will also be offering copies of his book, Food Town USA, and we will be utilizing funding to not only pay for the travel costs to bring Mark in from the West Coast, but also advertising costs, including print ads with our local newspapers, radio ads with WRFA and WBFO, and a billboard, because I love billboards. I'm just really excited because we have been seeing a true food revolution in this community, as many communities have, but it's time for us to take it to the next level. Again, what made me so excited when I went to that conference is that I was learning things that we brought back to this community that we've implemented over the last few years, including our successful Vendor 101 educational event that we have with our vendors. And we're excited to bring in a true expert to come and facilitate these discussions with our communities